Well, hello again, everybody, and welcome to what I like to refer to as Kicking Out with the Red Shadow. It's essentially my infrequent series of videos about professional wrestling. Today I don't really have anything to talk about in terms of, current wrestling product, recent pay-per-views or Raws and Smackdowns and all that. Instead, this was something I was wanting to do, and I may have even mentioned it before. I wanted to show off my collection of wrestling-related DVDs, Blu-rays, etc. So I'm just going to jump right into it because I don't want this to take exceedingly long. I want to buzz through each one of them, maybe talk about it for just a second, and get on to the next one. So we're going to dive right into a couple of random things that aren't necessarily WWE related. And the first one that we're looking at here is what is called Forever Hardcore. I've watched this once when I first picked it up. I got it because, although I wasn't into ECW at the time it was really popular, I've gotten into it since. And I really like stuff that's related to the hardcore wrestling scene. And this was sort of a documentary that was filmed separately from the stuff that WWE did after they had purchased the rights to the video library of ECW. I'm just going to read a little bit off the back of this, just so I don't want to take too long. This says, they revolutionized professional wrestling forever. A group of misfits, outcasts, and renegades led by a fearless visionary ushered in a new era of professional wrestling from a dive bingo hall in South Philadelphia. Now you will finally get the story from the mouths of the hardcore icons that lived it. Forever Hardcore recounts the amazing story of how Todd Gordon's Eastern Championship Wrestling got hardcore and went on to impact the wrestling business forever. Take an uncensored journey through the highs and lows of a group of athletes that were never supposed to make it, and the reflections of why they will always be forever hardcore. Sort of like on the cover here, you see Shane Douglas. Wow, I just messed that up. He had the stupid name Dean in WWE, if I remember right. You got Sandman, Sabu. Down below you got Terry Funk, and you got Raven. Anyway, I remember enjoying it, but I don't remember much about it because it's been so long since I watched it, which is the case with a lot of these DVDs and Blu-rays I'm going to show you. Next up we have Beyond the Mat. This was one that I saw years ago on VHS. I may have even owned it on VHS at one point, but after years and years and years of trying to track down the DVD of it, I managed to pick it up. This is the Ringside Special Edition. It's got an all-new exclusive commentary from Jesse the Body Ventura and Mankind, Mick Foley. I need to sit down and watch this version of it because it has the extra stuff on it. But the actual documentary on this was pretty amazing. Some behind-the-scenes stuff there that you pretty much won't see anywhere else. Okay, now I have a couple of interesting DVDs to say the least. This is the best of Backyard Wrestling 1 and 2. Backyard wrestling, first of all, don't try this at home. We're not just talking about wrestling stuff. These are hardcore. This is like amateur type stuff. Some of it has to do with some smaller promotions in the country, but some of the stuff that I've seen on here is literally like almost kids, if not kids, in their backyard, slamming each other through tables, hitting each other with fluorescent light bulbs, and just all kinds of crazy nonsense. It was because of my love for the hardcore stuff that I wanted to check these out. Some of the stuff on here is amazing. Some of these people may be popular wrestlers today, but some of this stuff is just so bizarre. As it says on the back, this will shock you. This probably will. Also, it should be known that there is some boobs and stuff like that, and they've got some hardcore ladies who had to come in between some of the videos and basically pop them out. So be warned if you don't want to see that in the middle of your wrestling nonsense. Okay, so this is going to be like the last of the miscellaneous stuff at the beginning. I think this was packed in some sort of a 2-pack that I bought of movies you'll see over here, or DVDs you'll see over here. But it was Smackdown vs. Raw 2008 game preview. I never even watched this because I think by the time I picked this up, the 2008 game had already been released for a while. I wouldn't have bought something like this by itself. This was a pack-in with some other DVD. You know, I work at Walmart. A lot of the stuff I get is from Walmart, and a lot of times we have special deals where you get 2 packs of something good, but this was just something that was thrown in with something else, whatever. But I would never get rid of something like that. Alright, I'm going to run through a few DVDs of some random pay-per-views that I picked up. Once again, Walmart. These were $5 things, so I decided to pick them up while they were in the $5 bin. The first one here is No Way Out. From the back of the case, this was from 2007. I watched, I think, most of this one day, and I mean, it was fine. This was Batista and Undertaker facing off against John Cena and Shawn Michaels. ECW Championship match, Bobby Lashley versus Mr. Kennedy. You know, it was just, like I said, $5. It's hard to pass up something for $5. Here we have Breaking Point 2009. The WWE Championship was on the line in an I Quit match between Randy Orton and John Cena. World Heavyweight Championship up for grabs in a submission match between CM Punk and The Undertaker. Several more matches there. Then we have Survivor Series 2009. Triple Threat, John Cena, Triple H, and Shawn Michaels for the WWE Championship. Triple Threat for the World Heavyweight Championship, Undertaker, Big Show, and Chris Jericho. And I have Survivor Series 2010, which is an interesting one here. I wasn't following the product at the time, but the WWE Championship match on the line between Randy Orton and Wade Barrett, who was relative newcomer at that time. Special guest referee was John Cena. Now I have a couple of ones that I haven't watched, but I would definitely enjoy these. It's Money in the Bank 2010, and then Money in the Bank 2011. This is probably the bigger one for me because this has John Cena versus CM Punk. I do believe this was the summer of Punk when dropped the pipe bomb and had the championship and left the company and all that, even though they didn't stretch that story out as long as they should have. I think this is the match where he won and then left, CM Punk that is. You'll see some more CM Punk stuff here in a little while if you're a Punk fan. And then my last pay-per-view DVD that I have is Elimination Chamber 2012. I like Elimination Chamber, I like Hell in a Cell, I like unusual matches. Standard matches are fine when you've got a couple of really good grapplers in the ring going at it, but most of the time I guess you could call me like a junk match fan. Hardcore stuff. I like matches that get outside of the ring, or I like matches that are in kind of contraptions like the Elimination Chamber or Hell in a Cell. Okay, the next couple ones I'm going to show off are some compilation DVDs of some older wrestlers. People who aren't necessarily, kind of sort of aren't necessarily current wrestlers. The first two are Ultimate Ric Flair Collection. I was not a big fan of Ric Flair back in like the NWA and WCW days. When he came to the WWE in, not the first time he was there in the 90s, but in the early 2000s, I started to gain more respect for him. And when they put out collections like this one, and the Nature Boy Ric Flair Definitive Collection, I picked him up because like I said, I started to get into him and really enjoy all of his work nowadays, past and present. Here we have Hulk Hogan, the Ultimate Anthology. I was an 80s wrestling fan, so, as a kid, I was into Hulk Hogan. I'm not so much an overall Hulkamaniac kind of thing to this day, but it was good to have a collection like this. I think there's another Hogan collection, but I don't think I have it. I'm sure, though, I'll pick it up someday. Here's another guy, sort of like Ric Flair, who, Bret Hart, this is the Best There Is, Best There Was, the Best There Ever Will Be Hitman collection. For a long, long time, I just really despised Bret the Hitman Hart. Not so much because he was a good heel. He was a good heel when he had heel runs. But really because the way he left the company and all that kind of stuff, I really felt like for a long, long time he got what he deserved. Over the years, my hostility in that direction have kind of settled down, and I've just realized that I was pissed off for no reason, just kind of being like a dumbass mark. And I'm glad that he patched things up with guys like Shawn Michaels and Vince McMahon. I'm glad that he was able to have a release like this, be a part of WrestleMania, and be on the show for a while, be in the Hall of Fame. It's well deserved for him, and I feel like a dumbass for the way I felt about it. You're going to see some more Bret Hart stuff later on here too. Here we have the life and times of Mr. Perfect. He was an amazing wrestler, Kurt Hennig. It's a shame that he is gone. But glad to have a collection of some of his classic matches. Here's another guy, glad to see him getting back into things, getting in the Hall of Fame, getting in shape. Hopefully this recent cancer scare will not be a big thing. It's Jake the Snake Roberts, the Pick Your Poison DVD. Very interesting stuff there to learn about things in his past. But glad to see him in DDP's yoga and in the DDP house, and see him getting back in shape, like I said. Here's one who, one of a small handful of people who absolutely deserves to be in WWE's Hall of Fame but isn't, and it's just mind-boggling. But this is Macho Madness, the Randy Macho Man Savage collection. I mean, how can you not have something like this in your collection? Oh yeah! I always make a lot of jokes about the Slim Jim commercials he did years ago. When I'm at work, I like to do the impression and step into a Slim Jim. Anyway, now this is a weird one because we've seen recently, and I talked about it in my last wrestling related video, but this is the DVD release called The Self-Destruction of the Ultimate Warrior. This was the kind of scathing DVD that WWE put out. I don't think they've ever put out something else that was so negative and against somebody who was a part of the company. But, you know, time caused things to heal, and he just recently got into the Hall of Fame, had a brand new release that's a lot more positive. I have a Voodoo digital copy of it that I stumbled into, but I don't have the actual release because my store keeps getting wrestling DVDs and not the Blu-rays. So I'm going to get that and a bunch of other newer releases very soon. But for now, that's the only Ultimate Warrior thing I have in the collection. And my last, what I would call classic wrestler collection, like mostly like 80s and 90s guys. But this is called Born to Controversy, the Roddy Piper story. This is Roddy Piper. You know, the guy who said, once you thought you had all the answers, I went and changed the questions. I'm probably horribly paraphrasing that, but Roddy Piper was pretty amazing, and I remember him very well when I was a kid, when I was into the Hogan and all that kind of era. I have kind of screwed up how I had this stuff sorted out, so give me just a second to fix this. Okay. Alright, so now these are a little bit more of the modern wrestlers, guys from, say, from the late 90s, or guys who were popular more in the late 90s and through the 2000s, and some of these up until today. And I'm going to start with a controversial one because I just want to show it off. I have no regrets or qualms whatsoever in owning this. I'm not saying that I watch it all the time, but this is Hard Knocks, the Chris Benoit story. I mean, at the time that this came out, the horrible tragedy that, you know, revolves around what happened with him, what hadn't happened, and this was a really good DVD showing a lot of good matches, letting you get to know him a little bit better, but obviously none of us knew anything truly about what was going on in his mind. For people who may not be wrestling fans and don't know what I'm talking about, Chris Benoit killed himself, but not before he killed his wife and one of his children over a horrifying weekend years and years and years ago. And you know, if a guy wants to take the weak way and the pussy way out and off himself, that's one thing. But to kill your wife and a defenseless child before you kill yourself is just horrific. No, he can't be forgiven for something like that. But I also, at the same time, I realized that his in-ring work was respectable, and while, like I said, I don't watch it, I'm not going to get rid of it because I do appreciate what he had done. But a lot of that appreciation, yes, it does kind of get diminished for a horrifying act like he did. Like I said, if he had just taken himself out, that would be one thing. But to kill other people, it's pretty wrong. I guess I kind of sit on the fence on it. Sometimes I'm just totally horrified by what he did, and other times I'm like, he was still a great in-ring performer. Anyway, let's move on to the next ones because we got a lot of stuff yet to touch on. This is Edge, Decade of Decadence. Edge used to be like my favorite wrestler at a certain point, especially back in the Brood days, back in the Edge and Christian days, when he went out on his own and was more of a heel most of the time. I was like, okay, it's fine. It's a good aspect of his character. He won the championship quite a few times, and all that was well and good. But the heyday for me was the Brood and then E and C when they were together. Alright, now we got some Undertaker videos here. This is the 15-0 DVD. It's so ironic to think about some of the releases they had for the streak now that the streak is over. But this was the 15-0. This was highlights from each match and interviews from many opponents. This was only a 3-hour long thing. It's not every single match. I have something I'll show later that includes most of the matches. Here we have Tombstone, The History of the Undertaker, 3-disc set. This one was released in 2005. Then they released The Undertaker's Deadliest Matches. This one isn't even open. This is still sealed. Then we have, here's an interesting one. McMahon, an actual love letter, I guess, from Vince McMahon to his Mr. McMahon character, with a bunch of matches and a little bit of a look at the character itself and the many rivalries that he had. Here's the Twisted, Disturbed Life of Kane. I don't know if Kane's had another release. Kane was always another one of my favorite wrestlers, and Glenn Jacobs, the guy who plays Kane, he has put up with a lot of stuff over the years. He should have had a lot more championship reigns than he had. There's a couple of Stone Cold releases. Stone Cold Steve Austin, What? This is actually one of my favorite releases of his because it was funny. It's relatively short, but it had some good extra matches, including a match as Stunning Steve Austin with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. At the time that I saw this, it blew my mind that this guy is actually a really good wrestler. The Stone Cold persona is the brawler and doesn't do a lot of wrestling, but he could go. And here we got the Stone Cold Truth. Next we've got Breaking the Code, Behind the Walls of Jericho. Behind the Walls of Chris Jericho, that is. Chris Jericho compilation. I've always been a big fan of Jericho, even from back in the WCW days. Here we have Twist of Fate, the Matt Hardy and Jeff Hardy story. 2 discs, dedicated one to each brother. And then after Matt Hardy left the company, we had Jeff Hardy, My Life, My Rules. The Hardy Boys were pretty crazy. Some of the stuff you see from them these days is out there in my mind, but let's see. I've mixed some stuff up again, so give me a quick second to fix this. Alright, we got John Cena, Word Life, and John Cena, My Life. I'm a Cena fan, but I'm not like crazy for John Cena. I think he's a little stagnant. I think he deserves a heel turn, but of course WWE doesn't want to cut the money off. He's like their money maker guy, so I guess I can kind of buy that. But I think he should do more than what he's been doing. From the Vault, Shawn Michaels. This is the first Shawn Michaels release of a bunch of his big matches. And we have Shawn Michaels' Story, Heartbreak and Triumph. I haven't watched this one, but like that other one was matches only. I think this one, and then this one, Shawn Michaels' My Journey. I believe these have more of a look at Shawn Michaels, the man. We have The Rock, the most electrifying man in sports entertainment. I love The Rock. He's pretty awesome. Here we got some Rey Mysterio releases. Rey Mysterio 619. The Life of a Masked Man. And Rey Mysterio, The Biggest Little Man. I'm a big fan of Rey Mysterio. Here we have Batista, I Walk Alone. This is unopened. This was a $5 purchase from Walmart, so I had to pick it up. I'm kind of an on-again, off-again Batista fan. I'm kind of off about him right now. Alright, we got Cheating Death, Stealing Life, the Rey Mysterio, the Eddie Guerrero story. Eddie Guerrero, I mean, what can you say? There's another guy who was gone too soon. Viva La Raza. Viva La Raza. Sorry, I can't do the accent kind of thing. Legacy of Eddie Guerrero. Lots of great matches on those. We have Triple H, the King of Kings. This is a release from 2008. He had a more recent release, but I haven't been able to pick that up. Alright, we're getting down to the last few of these. We have Rob Van Dam, one of a kind. Love Rob Van Dam. Big fan of RVD and ECW and the earlier WWE days. He's back in the company now as kind of a part-time wrestler. I don't really know how if he's still got it, if he can still go. We have the Big Show, Giants World. I'm a Big Show fan, but there's a guy who goes from being serious to being a monster to being a goof, and never seems to stay with one thing long enough to really carve out a spot. Alright, next we have two of the same thing, but we have Mick Foley's Greatest Hits and Misses. This is the original release, and then recently I was able to pick up the Hardcore Edition one, which just added some extra stuff from some return to the WWE world. Because like the most recent match on, this one was from 2000. This one here has some matches in 04 and 06, so I couldn't pass that up. Mick Foley has another release out that I wanted to get on Blu-ray, but my store didn't get them. We had DVD copies that actually came with Sockos. I was like, I gotta have that. Okay, I think I'm at a stopping point here. I don't know how far I can go with my videos, but I'm going to stop this and do a part 2 here in just a moment. So thanks for watching. Please check out number 2, and we'll see you here in a moment.